What is the axon initial segment? Well, the axon initial segment is the point, the location on a neuron where you start getting action potentials. So imagine you've got an axon that looks a bit like this, with a cell body, and then there'll be a long axon, a long axon leading down to a synapse, to the next neuron, and so on. And there'll also be dendrites coming out of the cell body like this, and perhaps some coming out of here. Now, if you plot where the sodium channels are, you find that they're not uniform. So the other thing we need to draw, of course, on here is the myelin sheath. Like that. So where do we see sodium channels? Well, we don't see them under the myelin sheath. We see them here at the nodes RNVA. And we see them here. But we don't see them in the rest of the neuron. We do see K channels here and here. So these are voltage-gated potassium channels, and around here. So what that means is, if you inject current, so here's a microelectrode, and I'm injecting current into the cell. Let's say it's depolarizing. I find I get this spread of depolarization going outwards and then gradually diffusing because of the passive properties of the membrane. The reason for that is some of the current comes in and spreads down the membrane, and some of it goes back out. And so it doesn't all make its way down. So you're not going to get an action potential here, only if this is strong enough to actually have an influence down here at this point here. So if I were to record from here, 1, and here, 2, and here, 3, let's call it 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, I would have an exponentially decaying amplitude of this depolarization. So if this is 0.4, at this point it's not above threshold, so I don't see an action potential. It just fizzles out. If I had to give it a bigger current, I would have now a situation like this, where it decays and it is above threshold, so I get an action potential. So this region here is the axon initial segment. Sometimes called the spike initiation zone. And the importance is that basically what that means is that this whole area around here, you don't get spikes actively propagated. So that means all the inputs to these neurons are going to follow the same rules. They'll only influence firing insofar as their voltage spreads far enough down here to actually cause an action potential. So that's what the axon initial segment is. It also follows that if you've got a synapse here, it's going to have a lot more influence than this synapse up here, because it doesn't have so far to spread.